Good morning, everyone. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you reacted to something and later wished you hadn't? Maybe it was an email that rubbed you the wrong way. Maybe it was a meeting where someone challenged your idea. Maybe it was a comment that triggered something deep inside. We've all been there, and what do we often do? We react emotionally, immediately, sometimes even aggressively. But here's the thing, leaders don't react. They respond, and great leaders, they observe, they upgrade. Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine, brilliant entrepreneur, once told me about the time he nearly blew up a business partnership over a single email. It was a simple message, a little abrupt, and it hit him just wrong. He read it late at night after a stressful day. He immediately started writing a fiery response. His ego wanted justice. His pride demanded payback. And then he stopped. He didn't hit send. He said something to me I've never forgotten. I realized the email wasn't the real issue. My reaction was, see, emotion is a natural part of who we are. We feel things, that's good. That's human, but here's where we often go wrong. We assume that emotion is the truth, or worse, the instruction manual for what to do next. It's not. Emotion is data, not direction. When you feel angry, it's a signal. When you feel defensive, it's a signal. When you feel dismissed, unseen, undervalued, that's data too. But like any good data, it needs context, and context only comes when we pause long enough to process it. Here's the problem. Too many of us are trying to lead while drowning in unprocessed emotion. We're using temporary feelings to make permanent decisions, and that's not leadership, that's instinct without insight. Great leaders, they do something different. They create a gap between stimulus and response. They ask, why am I feeling this? What is this reaction telling me about myself? Is this really about them? Or about something in me I haven't dealt with? That moment of inquiry, that's where wisdom lives. I'll give you an example from the Navy SEALs. They say, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That applies to leadership too. When we rush into reaction, we create friction. But when we slow down to observe our own emotion, we lead smoother, we lead smarter, we lead from intention, not insecurity. So the next time emotion hits you like a wave, don't panic. Don't push it down, and don't surf it straight into a mistake. Just say, thank you, you're telling me something, I'm listening. Then lead from there. Let's talk about something very human, reaction. Have you ever flinched when someone criticized you, snapped back in a meeting, or maybe just shut down when things got uncomfortable? You're not alone. That's instinct. Our brains are wired to protect us. In ancient times, it kept us alive. Fight, flight, freeze. But here's the twist. Most of what threatens us today isn't a tiger in the bushes. It's a comment in a boardroom, an email from your manager, a look from a colleague, and yet we still respond as if it's life or death. Here's the critical insight. Reaction is automatic. It's your survival software, but observation, that's conscious, that's leadership. I once worked with a CEO who told me about a confrontation with a junior employee. This young guy challenged the CEO in front of the whole team. Bold move, right. The CEO felt the heat rise. His ego wanted to shut it down. But instead he paused. He didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. He just looked at the young man and said, that's an interesting perspective, tell me more. Later, he told me every part of me wanted to react, but that pause, that saved the culture I was building. That's the difference between reacting and observing. See, when we react, we're handing over power. We're saying, you get to control my state. But when we observe, we take the wheel. We say, I see what's happening, but I choose how I respond. Observation gives us time. Time to reflect, time to choose wisely, time to lead with intention instead of emotion. Let me put it this way, reaction is a spark. Observation is the firebreak that keeps it from becoming a wildfire. It's the mark of maturity to stay grounded when everything in you wants to explode. It's not weakness to pause, it's strength, it's strategy, it's leadership. So the next time you feel the urge to fire off a reply, defend your idea, or prove a point, ask yourself, am I reacting from fear? Or responding from clarity? And then do what great leaders do. Breathe, observe, choose, because power doesn't come from what you control around you. It comes from what you control within you. A few years ago, I had a conversation with an executive at a fast-growing tech company. We were talking about performance reviews, and he said something that stuck with me. Every time someone challenges me or points out a weakness, I treat it like a system update. Not a threat, just a patch I didn't know I needed. Let that sink in for a second. Most of us spend a lot of energy defending our current version. We protect it, argue for it, justify it as if acknowledging a flaw means we're broken. But here's the truth, you're not broken. You're just running an outdated version of yourself. Think about your phone for a moment. What happens when it slows down, glitches, or can't handle the latest app? You don't throw it away. You don't panic. You update the operating system. And yet, when it comes to ourselves, we resist the exact same process. We hold on to outdated habits, outdated beliefs, outdated emotional responses, even when they clearly aren't serving us anymore. Why? Because upgrades require discomfort. They require humility. They require that we stop seeing feedback as a personal attack and start seeing it as a performance insight. Here's the shift. The person who triggers you isn't your enemy, they're your update notification. That teammate who's hard to work with, that client who pushes your boundaries, that feedback that stings a little too much, those moments are not setbacks, they're system alerts. They're telling you, hey, there's a better way to handle this now. There's a smarter, calmer, more evolved version of you available, if you're willing to download it. Great leaders don't get defensive, they get curious. They ask, why did that bother me so much? What belief is this challenging in me? Is this showing me where I've stopped growing? And then they upgrade, not overnight, not perfectly, but deliberately, because leadership isn't about being flawless. It's about being committed to continuous evolution. So the next time you hit a conflict or a moment of emotional friction, ask yourself, is this a threat? Or is this a system upgrade? And then lead yourself the same way you'd lead your team, not by shaming the old version, but by building a better one. Observe, learn, upgrade, repeat. Several years ago, I sat in a boardroom during a high-stakes negotiation. There were two leaders at the table. One was talking fast, cutting people off, jumping in with answers before questions were even finished. You could feel the tension. It was like he was trying to win the moment. The other leader, he sat quietly. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush. He watched the room more than he talked to it. And when he finally spoke just a few words, everything shifted. The temperature dropped. People leaned in. I realized something that day. Stillness is not silence. It's presence. It's power. It's strategy. We live in a culture that celebrates hustle. Speed is glorified. Noise is rewarded. Movement is mistaken for progress. But the best leaders, they're not the loudest or the fastest. They're the ones who can sit in the discomfort of a moment and still hold the room. Stillness is a form of intelligence. It tells the team, I don't need to control this moment to be in control. It creates space for reflection, for insight, for better decisions. And most importantly, stillness makes you responsive rather than reactive. In the Navy SEALs, they train operators to slow their breathing during chaos. Why? Because when you're calm, you see more. You feel more. You become aware of things others miss. Stillness becomes your advantage. The same is true in leadership. When you're still, you notice what's not being said, the tension behind a teammate's smile, the opportunity buried inside the conflict. Stillness is what allows you to ask the better question instead of giving the faster answer. Let me be clear, stillness is not about passivity. It's not indecision. It's deliberate, it's disciplined, it's strategic. Stillness doesn't mean do nothing. It means don't do the wrong thing just to feel like you're doing something. As a leader, your stillness becomes a signal to everyone around you. It tells your team, your culture, your clients, we don't chase noise, we choose signal. So when the pressure rises, when the meeting gets tense, when your inbox is full and your calendar's tighter than ever, practice the pause, breathe, observe, listen, choose stillness, because the calmest person in the room is usually the one who ends up leading it. A few years ago, I was mentoring a young leader who had just received some pretty direct feedback from his team. He came to me frustrated, almost embarrassed. He said, "They think I'm not listening enough, that I shut down their ideas too quickly. I work so hard, why can't they see that?" And I looked at him and said something simple, but something I wish someone had told me much earlier in my life. Don't take it personally, take it seriously. He paused, his face changed, because for the first time he realized this wasn't about his worth. It was about his growth. See, one of the greatest traps in leadership and in life is mistaking feedback for judgment, mistaking correction for condemnation. We make everything personal, the performance review, the critical email, the awkward silence in the room. We internalize every critique as a threat to our identity. But here's the truth. Growth is never about your value. It's about your potential. Your value is constant. Your value is not up for debate. But your potential, that's dynamic, that's stretchable, that's expandable, and guess what helps unlock it? The very moments you're tempted to take personally. A mentor once told me, every great leader has a story of being humbled. And it's true. That painful feedback, that failed project, that mistake that still makes you cringe, those aren't detours from growth, they are growth. They're the tuition you pay for becoming wiser, stronger, and more trusted. But only if you choose to view them not through the lens of ego, but through the lens of purpose. Purpose says, there's a bigger reason I'm doing this. This lesson is here to serve who I'm becoming, not who I'm trying to protect. And when you lead from that mindset, everything changes. You stop defending, you start developing, you stop clinging to who you've been, you start reaching for who you could become. Let me leave you with this: you are not your mistakes, you are not your worst day. You are not the feedback someone gave you when they were having a bad day. You are a leader in progress, a human in motion, a person being refined, not defined. So stop taking it personally, start taking it purposefully, and never stop upgrading.